What is mysticism? As you probably know, this is not an easy concept to pin down. This topic has attracted academics from across numerous fields: philosophers, theologians, historians, neuroscientists, and many others. A lot of folks will tell you that mysticism is essentially a type of spiritual or religious experience. Mystical experiences are often thought to be particularly illuminative and transformative. Mystics from religious traditions around the world have provided many first-hand accounts of their being thrust into life-changing states of ecstasy, beholding the most fantastic visions, and claiming to have found unity with the ultimate divine reality itself. Union with the divine and dissolution of the ego, or self, are often taken to be the principal markers of the mystical experience. Mystics are also known to claim that such states are exceedingly difficult, if not impossible, to capture in words. It's standard these days to begin an academic discussion on these matters with William James, an early 20th century philosopher and psychologist whose varieties of religious experience transformed the discussion on mysticism. James gives two essential marks of the mystical experience. First, ineffability. This means that mystical experiences defy expression. Though mystics will often attempt to use words to convey the content of their experiences, they also admit up front that their language fails to do so adequately. Second, there is what James calls the noetic quality. Mystical states are said to be states of insight and illumination. This does not necessarily mean that mystical states produce new revelations or new concepts, but that the agent realizes that their ordinary ways of knowing are not all that there is to the story. Truth is seen as being more expansive than previously believed in, and going from ordinary consciousness into a mystical state, the agent moves from smallness to vastness, writes James. Furthermore, the noetic quality of a mystical experience is authoritative for the agent who undergoes it, but this authority does not extend to others. James also offers up two other qualities of mysticism that are not necessary or essential, but are usually found nonetheless: transiency and passivity. These states are not sustained for long, and when the agent is undergoing the experience, they feel as though it is somehow beyond their control. Next, let's take a quick look at perennialism. A lot of scholars used to claim that because mystical union and ego dissolution are ineffable and therefore precognitive, they were effectively the same. Perennialists advance the idea that the world's religious traditions, Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Taoism, Hinduism, etc., all share one universal essence. Sure, these traditions are known to vary at the level of practice and doctrine, but at the higher, mystical level, perennialists claim that they become indistinguishable from one another. It was claimed that mystics experience pure consciousness, which is not subject to the conditioning of any particular culture. Mystical experience was said to be pre-linguistic. This idea was often argued for by appealing to the mystics and their rapturous experiences. It became fashionable to compare and contrast mystics from seemingly disparate traditions in order to demonstrate sameness, hiding behind difference. Perennialism, however, has fallen out of fashion among scholars for a number of reasons. I'll hint at a couple, briefly. First, most scholars deny the possibility that one can even have a pure experience devoid of one's cultural and historical setting. It is not as though the mystic has an experience first and that experience is subsequently interpreted according to their specific tradition. That experience and interpretation are inseparable from one another. Second, is it really true that religions share the same essence? While there are indeed striking similarities between, for instance, Jewish, Christian, and Islamic mystics, these traditions did not develop in isolation from each other. In fact, mystics and philosophers from these traditions exchanged and continue to exchange many ideas. So when we find commonality across these mystical traditions, we ought to remember that they quite often emerge from the same cultural milieu. Many scholars would encourage us to not get too caught up in similarity, as there may be important places where these traditions diverge from each other, even at the higher level. When we look closer at these traditions on their own terms, we may find that what qualifies as mysticism in one tradition does not necessarily even qualify as such in another tradition. A recent change within mystical scholarship is that mysticism is no longer conceived of as being essentially a sort of experience. Of course, numerous mystics report having rapturous experiences, but this is only one aspect of mysticism. Mysticism is now more commonly seen as being about a deep hunger and longing for the divine, but that longing involves much more in extraordinary and uncommon experiences. Mysticism is here seen as an aspect of philosophy and theology. It's not just that mystical experiences are ineffable, but mystics have long argued that the nature and essence of the divine is itself beyond words. Consider Pseudo-Dionysius, an early Christian mystic who doesn't really report any ecstatic experiences of his own, but has a lot to say about the impossibility of capturing God's essence in human language. Speaking of God's nature, he writes, "Again, as we climb higher, we say this: it is not soul or mind, nor does it possess imagination, conviction, speech, or understanding, nor is it speech per se, understanding per se. It cannot be spoken of, and it cannot be grasped by understanding. It is not number or order, greatness or smallness, equality or inequality, similarity or dissimilarity. It is not immovable, moving, or at rest. It has no power, it is not power, nor is it light. It does not live, nor is it life. It is not a substance, nor is it eternity or time. It cannot be grasped by the understanding, since it is neither knowledge nor truth. It is not kingship, it is not wisdom. It is neither one nor oneness, divinity nor goodness, nor is it a spirit, in the sense which we understand that term. It is not sonship or fatherhood, and it is nothing known to us or to any other being. It falls neither within the predicate of non-being nor of being. Existing beings do not know it as it actually is, and it does not know them as they are. There is no speaking of it, nor name nor knowledge of it. Darkness and light, error and truth, it is none of these. It is beyond assertion and denial. We make assertions and denials of what is next to it, but never of it, for it is both beyond every assertion, being the perfect and unique cause of all things, and by virtue of its preeminently simple and absolute nature, free of every limitation, beyond every limitation, it is also beyond every denial." In Pseudo-Dionysius, we see a mysticism that is essentially theological and not so much experiential. The cited passage is an example of what is called apophatic theology, or negative theology. In other words, what we're seeing here is a way to understand God via negation in terms of what God is not. By denying human concepts of God, the mystic seeks to block our reduction of the divine to mere anthropomorphic ideas. This is not the only way that Pseudo-Dionysius and the Christian mystical tradition speak of God, but it is one of the oldest and most revered. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to reading your discussion post this week.